Hey, what's up, everyone? We are back with a new episode on Wonderful. Excited to introduce Tauntaun for this episode. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I'm so excited to be chatting with you.
Yes, thank you for coming on here. I love this opportunity to connect with people who otherwise, since we're in two totally different places, otherwise we wouldn't be connecting. So it's pretty fun. Before we jump into the questions, where are you originally from, and then where are you currently based?
Yeah, so I am originally from a small town called Leipzig, 2 hours south of Berlin in East Germany. And I moved to San Francisco 7 years ago, and then I moved to Maui about 2 years ago.
Wow, that's dope. I love that. I've never been to Maui or anywhere in Hawaii, so I'm like, of course, when you see someone that lives there, you're like, what? Like you think, oh, it's like a vacation. They live in a vacation land, but yeah, it looks very pretty from stuff I've seen on your Instagram. So I do want to ask you more about that later too. All right, well, we're gonna jump into it to get to know you more as a DJ. My first question would be, what is your personal mindset or focus when you're preparing for a gig or even during a gig? Are there any mantras or intentions that you hold for yourself when you're performing?
Yeah. The way I prepare for gigs is I always start to think about how I want the audience to feel. I think the way that I got into music and DJing when I was so young was that I found an incredibly strong community at electronic music events. Mm-hmm. And so the feeling of belonging and self-expression and release is always on my mind when creating sets, and it's different for every gig because it's also depending on what I'm feeling, what I want to express. So it's a combination of what I want the audience to feel like and what is it that I just need to get off my chest,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's dope. That makes perfect sense. I would definitely say that's relatable for myself too. And it's good. I mean, that's, I think, what makes great performers anyway. You definitely have to keep in mind, what do you want to make people feel? But you also need to bring some of that authentic expression from your personal space. So that makes perfect sense. So next question, do you have any projects or DJ gigs you're looking forward to for this spring, summer season?
Yeah, there's a couple, and the two that stand out for me is I'm going to play with my friends from the group called Renegade Masquerade at the Great Northern in San Francisco Memorial Day weekend. So that's my first gig. I think that's a bigger festival with multiple stages, and I get to do it with my crew. That's incredibly exciting for me. And then a second gig that I'm really excited about is I am invited to play at a smaller festival in the north of France on a private island called Avalon. And those are the kind of gigs that I got into DJing for, right? I get to explore different countries, different communities, and just collect all this experience of how can I create this feeling of belonging and community even if I'm not the local DJ, right?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Very cool. Have you played in either of those places before? You said it was France, and what was the previous one?
That was in San Francisco at the Great Northern. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've played in San Francisco a bunch. It's where I play the most. That's where I have still a very strong community from the 7 years that I've lived there. And I'm honestly so grateful for that community, because when I moved to Maui, I thought I had to give up music, because there's not much of a scene here. I'm very grateful for that. And because of my community in San Francisco, I always look forward to play there. So that's what I'm excited about. And then in France, I did play in France last year as well. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'm
very
excited.
cool. Well, that sounds exciting. It's always good to know you have stuff lined up as the months are coming, especially for spring and summer. It's a fun season for, house music and being around people. So that's super dope. And great when we'll be able to, all your socials be connected to this episode. So hopefully people can tune in, maybe in some of those cities, check you out.
Speaking of, sorry to interrupt, I do want to mention that we're going to do our first show in Maui actually too. So if people from Maui are watching this episode, in like 2 weeks on May 6th, we're going to host our first Maui show. And the hope that I have with that is that I can start to build a house and techno community here. So that's actually something I really very much look forward to as well. Yeah.
That's great. Well, that's awesome that, you're starting to know that there wasn't maybe much of a scene and that you're taking some initiative to develop that. I think that will go really well. I can't wait to see what you post, how it turns out, and how everything builds from that. Yeah. So outside of DJing, what are some of your other passions or creative outlets that you enjoy on downtime?
Yeah. Well, I started teaching myself or learning how to make my own music. I don't have a background in music other than my dad is a professional jazz drummer, so I did grow up with music around me, but I've never, not in school or in college, really focused on learning music theory and learning an instrument. So, I do piano lessons every day, and I did a bunch of production boot camps. Big shout out to FemHouse and LPGOB. She's doing the free boot camps for you to attend. So I'm doing that. And then that is mostly my creative outlet. It's really community organizing and music. That I'm into. That's my whole life.
That's great. Well, I can't wait to see. I'm kind of in a similar vein of, I also was learning through FemHouse to do the production side as well. So definitely a great resource. And it's exciting to see what will come of that now that you're learning that new tool, what you'll be able to express with that. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
How has the process been with it? Have you been able to creatively expand already and enjoy that?
Yeah, I think so. I think what is a challenge, if I may share that, is that I think I still work with my head a lot, right? And I think my intention, especially for year 2 of learning how to make music and make electronic music, is to shift gears from my head to my heart. I think what I'm struggling with is that I'm still trying to figure out, how to use my Ableton Push correctly and how to use my MIDI keyboard. And I'm pretty solid in Ableton now, so that's cool. But I'm still when you make tracks, I'm still thinking about I'm thinking in arrangement first. My background. My background is in business. I went to business school. I was, working in corporate for a long time and then in startups. And so I'm so used to being very logical minded in my creations, right? You always begin with the end of, what's the saying? You begin with the end in mind or something.
Right.
In business, right? Because you have this expectation of how this product is going to sell, well, yada, yada. But when it comes to creative, production, really, it's something I have to learn, or I'm currently unlearning to using my head so much when making stuff. And so I think over time I will be able to have a more direct line between what I'm feeling on the inside and what I want to express and what comes out. So right now it's kind of I have an idea, but then the thing that comes out has gone through so many filters of analysis and
that's a really good point. And I think at all levels, I bet I know it too personally, all creatives go through that process where you're almost that overthinking stage where it's you're trying to perfect it, you want to follow the good format, you want to make sure it's high quality, whatever. But at some point it's once you peel all that back and come back to just some fun, whatever comes out, sometimes it'll be your best stuff, So that's cool that you're aware and that you'll be able to continue to work on that and balance it and you know, it's a new outlet to explore that side where you're less in your head, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, same here though. It's like when you're in the learning curve too, you have to be a little more, you know, you have to analyze. You can't just like, it's not like picking up a paintbrush. We already know how to do that in different colors. It's like, oh, there's a lot of steps here, you know.
So many tools.
Yes.
It's so much. And you know, compared to picking up how to DJ. So my background is actually when I was 15, I started DJing for the first time, but it was vinyl. So, you know, yeah. So I only lasted like, you know, not even 6 months or something, because I was 15 and I got so nervous, like beat matching, especially on stage. Like I hated like being in the spotlight and you know, and you had to like carry your cases with the records to the club, and everything was so expensive, etc. And then when I started getting back into DJing in 2020, I like, you know, got to use the digital tools that are available now, and that was fairly easy to pick up, which is a great thing. I think a lot of my colleagues are like, you know, feeling like it should be harder or anything, where I think the more accessible the better, because we can actually create a very diverse group of artists, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I got into that and picked it up really quickly, versus now learning how to make music. That's like, there's like magnitudes of different skill levels. It's a magnitude of a difference of how much more complicated it is, and it just takes so much time to be able to create something that sounds good. So I don't know if you're at that level yet, but I'm still like, you know, like focusing on like mixing my low ends perfectly, and, you know, make it just sound like, how do I not make sound muddy? And, you know, it's so complex. And I also feel like it's right what I want in a challenge. Like I like to be challenged, and I like to be able to feel like it's an infinite source of like expression for me. And I feel like the more I learn about how to use the tools, the more I'm like starting to like really see just how much can be done with a tool like Ableton or Ableton Push.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I feel the same way. It's definitely, it feels like it's going to be a long learning curve of just, it can be never ending. Yeah. The levels of how great it could get production wise. So yeah, it's a lot. But it's great that, you know, you took the steps, because I think because it was, for me, and it might have been the same for you, it was intimidating at first for me to even start at a point. So it's at least, you know, we're taking the path.
Yeah. And how do you decide, like, and I would be interested to hear that from you, like, have you started like putting tracks out there that you feel proud of, and how did you get to that point?
Yeah, well, I mean, this summer actually will be my first time releasing a house electronic, my first like song of my own as a DJ. So yeah, and I was going through the same route. Like I'm making what I start with on Ableton. And then the cool thing is, because I was doing music before even being a DJ, I have a lot of friends who are producers. So I'll take that concept and I'll bounce it off of like my partner who does production. And he'll help me level it up to that, you know, like, okay, now it's finished, now it's good. You know, the mixing. So I think that's what's cool too. It's great. I want to be at the point where I can do everything myself, but it's really cool if you can find people that you mesh with to collaborate. You know, music can really be fun in that way, where it's like, oh, I hear like this piano melody, maybe you can add the drums, then I'll maybe add something else. You know what I mean? Like, there might be like ways where it's not all on you. But because I'm definitely not completely at the level where I'm like, I'm gonna make the song, mix it, I'm gonna do everything. Like, it's a lot.
I think I watched Justin Martin's Instagram story over the weekend. He was preparing for Coachella, and I saw in his story he had this like to-do list of, I need to finish these 4 remixes for the gig. And so he, like, every day he posted like, done, next one. I'm like, oh my God, if I can get to a level where I can do a remix or a song in a day, like, that's kind of the goal. So we'll see how long that takes.
Nice, right? You'll have to keep me updated, because I gotta definitely keep it going too. So we're gonna do one more question before we wrap it up. So I know you mentioned that you live in Maui, which I think is super cool. I think a lot of people think that's like so cool. So if you were giving suggestions on places to visit while in Maui, what would be a few of your must-see recommendations? It could be food, nature, a venue. You know, what would you tell someone coming for their first time?
I would say explore the North Shore. Most tourists that come here, they go to Lahaina, which is on the west side, and it's very pretty there. But I think the North Shore has a lot of more local culture. The weather is a little bit more windy and the waves are a little bit bigger. So oftentimes people are seeking the more calm beaches on the west side, but I would really encourage you to spend more time up here and go to a local cafe, try to connect with the local artist scene here. Like we have a lot of artists here, especially painters. So my partner, he's a painter. So
Nice.
so we're connected with that community, and it's beautiful.
Very cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I love it. I hope to visit Maui one day. So I'll hit you up personally,
Yes.
like, hey, where else should I go?
We do have the guest room, so that's
Okay.
one thing that I'm like really proud of, is that we intentionally have one room in our community house that is for our mainland visitors and friends. So
Oh, very nice. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on Wonderful. It's been great meeting you and chatting with you, and I can't wait for the world to hear your mix and people to check this out. And we wish you the best of luck with your summer 22 adventures, and we will be in touch.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.